Right, I am just going to set the presentation running. Can everybody see that slide?
Yes, that's perfect.
Right, sorry, my connection is slightly slow, so it's just trying to load up. Sorry about this, won't be a minute. Right, over to you, Donna.
Okay, well, the slides haven't loaded for me, so I'm just
They
going to
haven't?
but no,
Right,
not
okay.
again. Okay, just to let you know. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for taking the time to attend this lightning talk. My name is Donna Easton, and along with my colleague Jo Horsfall, we are going to talk about our experience of the Mentally Healthy Universities programme. I'll now hand over to Jo to start us off.
Right, thanks, Donna. In 2020-2021, Leeds Beckett took part in Mind's Mentally Healthy Universities programme. This 12-month programme tested several new interventions to help universities take a whole community approach to mental health, focusing on prevention and early intervention. There were two strands to the programme, one focusing on students and another on staff, which we are covering today. The staff side of the programme was split into two phases, mental health champions and peer supporters. Goldman Sachs Gives funded the project to the cost of £1.5 million. One of the programme's goals was to reduce stigma and improve peer support for university staff. This led to the recruitment and training of 13 staff mental health champions and 10 peer supporters in the School of Art, the Carnegie School of Sport and the library. A mental health champion is an employee who takes action to raise awareness of mental health difficulties amongst staff and challenges mental health stigma in their department, division and wider university context. There's no set definition of peer support, but at its core, peer support is about the relationships that people build as they share their own experiences to help and support each other. A designated coordinator from Leeds Mind was assigned to the length of the programme, delivered the training for both mental health champions and peer supporters, arranged meetings for us to check in with each other, and basically just kept us on track. Right, it's you now, Donna.
Applications for the staff mental health champion role were sought during November 2020. I applied for the role because I wanted mental health to be a normal part of conversations at work. Having had experience of poor mental health, I wanted the opportunity to support others while also raising awareness through activities and signposting. Online training for the role was delivered by the Mind project coordinator and took place during December 2020, consisting of 2 3-hour sessions. Topics included mental health and stigma, activities and signposting, managing conversations, boundaries, confidentiality and safeguarding. Mental health champions attended regular meetings with the project coordinator from Leeds Mind, and networking events provided opportunities to share ideas. A national mental health champions network has also been created via Cambridge University to connect all the champions of the programme across the country. All the staff mental health champions approach the role in different ways, depending on their workload and the time available. I found I had to adapt my approach due to the challenges that arose with school closures during the pandemic, which meant for a time I was working unusual hours. This resulted in sharing mental health resources via email and Teams. The Mental Health Champions decided to use the Time to Talk campaign in February 2021 to launch some activities. The theme was around informal Get Talking events, giving staff an opportunity to talk to colleagues who they may or may not know outside of formal work meetings. The activities included pet roulette, the idea being was to bring your pet to the online chat. All staff were invited to attend as the option to set your background to your favourite pet was encouraged. Common Thread was an opportunity for staff to chat and share crochet, embroidery, knitting, mending, and any other creative projects that they were working on. Outdoor Chat was the lunchtime walk event where staff could enjoy some time in the outdoors. Two groups have been particularly successful during the project. Common Thread and Get Out and Run, Walk or Cycle have both carried on throughout the year, providing a safe space for colleagues to support each other through wellbeing activities. Staff peer supporters were recruited in early 2021 and online training took place in mid-April. The training was designed by National Mind and delivered by the local project coordinator. At this moment in time, we have only just assigned the peer supporters to the schools and service, and there has been no take-up as yet. Peer supporters are purposefully not assigned to their own school or service, as it was felt that people might prefer to speak to others who they don't have regular contact with or know little about. Due to the time of year, we are going to relaunch in mid-September and do a promotional campaign. Despite no peer support activity between supporters and supportees, a vast amount of foundational work has been set in place for the start of the 21-22 academic year. Everything that has been decided has been guided by the project coordinator only, with key decisions being peer-led. It is expected it will take some time to thoroughly embed peer support into the current university culture, especially due to the newness of the concept. Once established, however, peer supporters have a great deal to offer to complement traditional staff mental health support, especially for those who have previously encountered stigma or for whom perceived stigma has prevented seeking support.
As you can imagine, there were challenges. Despite the volume of activity achieved, mental health champions often expressed concern that they couldn't find the time to fulfil the role to its full potential because there were no hours designated to the role, meaning other work activity often took priority. 12 months was a very short time to set things up and get things established. Finding a suitable meeting time for all mental health champions was tricky, as schedules vary from person to person. So we worked around this with one-to-one meetings, MS Teams updates and emails. And there were also major challenges created because of COVID-19 restrictions. There's little precedence for workplace mental health champions role existing outside of a physical work environment. But staff mental health champions adapted well to online working, but noted they would like a chance to do the role whilst on campus. It can be quite disheartening to put time and energy into planning an activity for it not to take off or not to be well attended. There can often be a temptation to force or abandon activities that might not work out at that moment in time, but things can and do develop organically. There's still a culture of non-disclosure around mental health difficulties amongst staff. It is hoped that in time, the peer supporters' presence alongside the work of the mental health champions and wider university efforts will give people the confidence to talk about mental health more openly. Programmes such as this are hard to evaluate due to the nature of mental health. Often you can't know what the outcomes of certain activities are or of sharing links to support via email. However, we've tried to record anecdotal feedback and comments received. We have recently had confirmation that there is no more funding for the programme, so the future is really uncertain. With no coordinator, there's the real danger of there being no sense of purpose, no one to check in with, and if and when staff leave, the roles not being replaced. However, there were many benefits. Overall, within a short amount of time and with a challenging year for higher education, the pilot shows the varied successes staff mental health champions achieved whilst working toward a positive culture of mental health within the workplace. These have included lifting staff morale, keeping mental health on the agenda, and creating safe spaces to talk about staff wellbeing, reducing stigma, raising awareness and sharing information and signposting. As the pandemic further increased the need for mental health and wellbeing support for university staff, it was seen as being even more timely. It is important for staff to explore mental health difficulties and challenges with someone who isn't necessarily their line manager, someone who's no connection to their role but who can listen. It has allowed staff to build relationships across the wider university. There has been a real appreciation of the challenges that colleagues in other areas of the university were facing, but also finding a common ground. And we had the opportunity to feed back directly to the sponsors on the progress and the results we were achieving. This gave a more personal and real account to the sponsors. So thank you for listening. And as Zelda said, the questions are going to be taken after we've all spoken.
That's great. Thank you very much, Donna and Joe. And now we've got Karen Backhouse from Liverpool Hope and Dan Copley from Edge Hill talking to us about changing the network.
Right. Hello, everyone. I'm just going to try and share my screen. So hopefully people can see that. Yeah, so my name's Dan Copley. I'm the archivist at Edge Hill University, and with me is Karen Backhouse, the Special Collections Librarian from Liverpool Hope University. And we're going to be talking about refreshing the Merseyside Archives Network and the importance of cross-sector collaboration that was a big part of that. So first off, actually change my slide. So why the change? Well, the Merseyside Archives Liaison Group, as it was known, formed in 1986. This is a good network for for existing members, but we all felt it could be a lot more, because it had basically become a network which was a place for people to meet and share experiences, but not much more than that. And we felt there was a lot more potential. We wanted to increase and broaden the membership, especially reaching smaller archives and those with lone workers. We wanted new members to be able to come along and see the opportunities it presents to be part of a network, but don't necessarily have the time or resources to just go along to something where it's just about networking. Maybe they need a bit more. We wanted it to raise awareness of archives across the region, so the archives users knew about the wealth of collections available to them, and this would benefit us all in terms of increased usage and higher profiles. We also wanted to support advocacy internally and externally, because we know that a successful, thriving network will receive more support and attention from senior managers and other stakeholders, but can also be used by many archives to support funding bids, accreditation, and collaboration. And throughout this, that partnership and collaboration was absolutely key to us. We believe this will help us all find greater funding opportunities. It broadens the audiences we reach, and it diversifies our projects and activities, because we can work with archives and collections that have very different type of collections, facilities, and audiences than our own. So a subgroup was put together to make a bid to the National Archives Networks for Change, and it was successful. So this funding enabled us to work with a brilliant design company called Smiling Wolf. They helped us rebrand the network with a new name, logos, and an overall design that all members can use. And this whole presentation uses various slides and designs and logos that they worked with us on. We chose the name, the Archives Group, as a name to make it clear to archives users exactly what we were, and then using the subheading Liverpool City region, so it's clear about our origins and where the network is based. We worked with Smiling Wolf on a new website, which I'll show you in a moment, and a booklet which was designed like a directory, where people can see what different archives have to offer and find the right collections for their research and interests. It's also really important to us that there's no kind of hierarchy here. All of the archives are given equal space on the website and the booklet, no matter what their size as an institution or any other factors. We also started the process with Smiling Wolf of launching an Instagram page, so that we can share images from across the network, promote events, emphasize that collaboration. Ultimately, we want people to discover more and start using archives they might never have considered or known about before. So I'm going to try to just share the website with you as well. So I just have to change my screen a moment. So hopefully you can still see this. So this is the homepage of the website, which is quite a striking and clean image. And then we have a little bit about the archive group below. And then from the homepage, you can see a list of all of the different members. So if we go to Liverpool John Moores as an example, all of the pages have this same format. So they have an image at the top from their collections, a bit about the archives themselves, contact details, social media contacts if they have them, And as you go down the page, you'll see pictures which were all chosen to try and represent the kind of range of collections that different institutions hold. And then right at the bottom, you have a map as well, so you can find where they are. So if we can go back to our presentation. So that's really about the website. And then the directory alongside it follows very similar format to the website. So again, so you go through all the different institutions there, and you can hopefully find what you want. But we felt this was really important that we had something like this, which is more old school, I suppose, because we want it to be accessible to people who maybe go to heritage events or visit archives, but don't tend to use internet tools as much. It's also a really handy visual prompt, because the idea is this will be in all the different repositories. So obviously for volunteers and staff there, it's a useful way if they're chatting to people coming in to be able to say, oh, you might want to also look at other archives in the area who might be able to help your research, because they'll actually see it. So it's a good way of signposting. And I'm going to hand over to Karen to talk a bit more about the collaboration with higher education institutes.
You're still muted, Karen.
Cracking start. Hi, I'll start again. To understand the benefit of collaboration for higher education institutions, HEIs, we need to consider the HE system for assessment. So first off, we have the Research Excellence Framework, the REF. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. That is a system for assessing the quality of research in UK higher education institutions. It has a major impact on research rankings and funding allocations, and is therefore of critical importance. Two core assessment criteria are reach, the size and scale of the impact upon individuals, communities, organisations and environments, and also the significance, the degree to which the impact has enriched, influenced, informed or changed policies, behaviours and practices. The UK Research and Innovation, the definition that they use for research impact is an effect on change or benefit to the economy, society, culture, public policy or services, health, the environment, or quality of life beyond academia. Collaborative projects with archive services enables HEIs to demonstrate wider accountability for the public money they receive for funding and the means to evidence research impact. Moving on to the next one, we have the Teaching Excellence Framework, TEF, which measures the performance of HE providers. Now, collaborative projects enriches the student experience and their employability, provides archives with an opportunity to engage with new audiences and new ideas, utilises archive collections, services and expertise. It's worth mentioning at this point that the archive group aims to explore options for a shared scheme across the region to help improve diversity in the sector, by offering work experience to those who traditionally have not thought about or maybe not had the opportunity to work in archives. By pooling resources, expertise and time between several TAG member institutions, this widens the experience gained by the individual. So to highlight working with archives and how that's enriched the student experience, I've just chosen an exhibition on their own, Britain's Child Migrants exhibition at the Merseyside Maritime Museum. This told the story of how more than 100,000 British youngsters were sent to Canada, Australia and Commonwealth countries as part of child migration schemes from 1869 onwards. Now, our final year undergraduate students at Liverpool Hope, studying for the early childhood degree, attended this exhibition, which greatly aided their understanding. And on the next slide, you can see the same group of students in a teaching session in the reading room at Liverpool Hope, utilising the Nugent archive, which dates back to the work of Father James Nugent in mid-19th century Liverpool. He was an early pioneer of child migration, taking the first group of 24 children to Canada on 18th of August 1870. So you can see the obvious connections to the On Their Own exhibition. The REF and TEF provides HEIs and archive services opportunities to develop mutually beneficial collaborations, enhancing teaching and research and utilising funding grants. To finish with, I wanted to share with you a collaborative exhibition between member institutes in TAG. As it was at that point, it was still MAL. However, this is Black Punch, which was an exhibition curated by the Heritage Development Company in Liverpool in partnership with Liverpool Central Library and Archives and supported by National Lottery Heritage Fund. It chronicled the story of boxers of African descent who fought out of Knowsley in Liverpool over the past 180 years and was first shown at Central Library in 2019, and then it moved to Knowsley Archive in Kirby Library in 2020. Events and exhibitions can now be advertised in Instagram and added to our webpage. We'll have a page for events and exhibitions on there. And this will enable us to showcase collaborative research projects. This acts as a useful resource when applying for funding grants to show what it is that we've achieved before, and also as a valuable advocacy tool for stakeholders and for the archive sector in general. And that's it. Thank you. Our details are there if you think of beyond today. If you think of any questions, then please do get in touch with either Dan or myself. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Karen and Dan. That's fab. We're on to our third lightning talk for the session now, which is Leanne Young from the University of Sunderland.
Thank you. I'm just uploading my presentation, which hopefully everybody can see.
Yeah, we can see that fine.
Great. So hi, I'm Leanne. I'm the Distance Services Librarian at the University of Sunderland, and I do faculty and liaison support for independent learners and transnational education students, so students that are studying overseas, and that's a really significant part of the university portfolio. There are, and I was just in a meeting the other day and they said there were about 6,500 current TNE students in 20 countries, over 40 locations. So it's a massive part of the portfolio, but it does, you know, over the years it has provided some challenges. I mean, the university's been providing TNE provision for decades. I've been in this role now for 15 years, and it continues to, you know, provide new challenges. But over the course of, you know, the COVID period, and thinking about what to do for this presentation, I wanted to reflect on some things that have worked and some positive things that have happened. So the first thing is one of the challenges that we've had, and I think it's a challenge for everybody, it's not unique to TNE or to me, is struggling to learn about new things that are going on, specifically new partners or new programs that are happening. Sometimes we find out about them, sometimes we don't. We might find out about a new partner in a new country after it's already happened and students are having problems. And that's obviously not ideal. It has implications for e-resource licenses, which if anybody's involved in that, you'll know how hairy it can get, and you need to like negotiate. The providers want to know the TNE number, so you need to renegotiate licenses. And we want to be able to provide the e-resources, but we can't if we don't know that the students are there. So getting that message across to the other departments and the other faculties that we need to be involved in that has been a challenge, but we've had a lot of success with that recently in the last sort of year and a half, 2 years, and it all stemmed from a new law program that we had because we'd never delivered law in this way before, and the law databases are some of the most rigid. So somebody, thankfully, in academic registry had a question about e-resources, and that kind of sparked a lot of, you know, issues and problems and things, discussion points. But I think in the end it was a good thing because it allowed us to ask the questions that we needed to ask and use that as an example of why we really need to be involved in the process. You could explicitly say, here's an example of when we may not be able to provide resources to your students or our students because we didn't know about them, and we actually are like breaking licenses if we do provide access. So we need to be really careful. And so that that was good, even though it didn't feel like it at the time. And I think it has yielded good positive results. We've got much better relationships now with academic registry and the international office. Those discussions have kind of shown us what we have in common, and we now have been invited to sit on the TNE operational steering group, which the university runs the operational matters for the TNE. But what that really allows us to do is get a good sense of what's actually happening. So I was at one yesterday, and they were talking about all the potential new partners that might happen. They might not, but there's like a development grid of what is going on. And just that early indication for us is fantastic, because we can ask the right questions and just be prepared in a way that we weren't before. So that was great. And I think turning that like negative thing into an opportunity was what I took away from it. And it wasn't me, it was the whole team of people, our collections team, the liaison team, a lot of people involved. But we've since had a good relationship with the quality manager, and we've got part of the process where when partners go through due diligence and get approved, before they get approved, they let us know about it. This is definitely going to happen. Do what you need to do, ask us what you need to ask us. And then once the partner has been approved or the new program has been approved, they actually let us know about that as well, because they have some recommendations or requirements that need to happen on both sides when a new partnership happens. And we are one of the recommendations, initiating contact with the library and through the partner. So we've been able to offer video chats, just provide some training for staff before the students start, because we really don't like to be reactive. I mean, nobody does, but we don't want to be reactive at Sunderland. We want to have things in place so that our TNE students, wherever they are, have, as similar an experience as they can. It's always going to be different, but we want to provide some parity. So that's allowed us to do that. I've just remembered I forgot to move my slide along, but there's nothing interesting on there that I didn't say already. The second thing is the sharing what does work. So it's really great when you get a member of academic staff who is a library advocate, and I feel like you don't want to like target people, because they might not be library advocates anymore, but also you want to like use them and use their good feedback. And I've got one centre leader the centre leaders manage the operational things that happen at centres, and I've got one centre leader at partners in Tashkent and in Sri Lanka who is such a library advocate, and they normally would do visits, and they haven't been able to do that, so she was doing a virtual visit, and she's like, can you please do some sessions with the staff and with the students as part of this virtual visit? It's taking place all week. And so we did that, and I was able to do some staff development with the staff there, show them what kind of support is available to them, show the student. We had a good discussion with the students about their experience and what they were doing, and it ended up going into academic integrity and how we can support that, and it just felt really nice to be involved in that. And I thought, well, I didn't get any feedback from it. It's really hard to get feedback from people when they're online. So I thought, I'm going to ask. So I emailed the lecturer and said, I would appreciate some feedback about how you thought that went, good or bad. And she sent me a really great email, which I have turned into a case study, because from me, the takeaway is, don't be afraid to ask for feedback. If you have got someone who is willing to shout it from the rooftops, use them, really. And so I've got this case study, which I have since shared with all of the other centre leaders across all faculties and all programmes that are running. I sent it in June. It might not have been the best time, but I really wanted to start getting it out there. But I think, academics are not around in the summer that much, so it's not always a good time to do things like that for academics, but it did yield some really good results, even though it was the summer. So I sent this case study out, and I said to Sharp, the lecturer, do you mind if I use your feedback to make this case study, because you found this really useful, other people will, but I don't think they know that we offer this, even though I tell them. I think they're retaining too much information at one time. It's not getting through. Can I make a case study? And she was really into it as well, thankfully. So I did, and I sent it out as part of a newsletter, which I've got on the next slide. And within a couple of weeks, I'd had like 3 or 4 requests from people I didn't even know were centre leaders, because they were newer. And then it's always changing all the time. It's really hard to keep on top of it. And then since then, I've had 5 requests over the summer, which I think is pretty good, from people who I don't normally interact with that much, saying, can you provide some training to staff at my centre? What kind of things can you do? Can you just meet with this person, because they're the one that's dealing with that? And so that was really, that's a really good starting point for me. And I feel like using the case study approach and sharing something that really worked with other people is a great way to build awareness of that. So I'm really keen on doing a bit more of that, and not being afraid to ask for feedback when it's possible. So my third kind of success from something that's been quite difficult in the past is related to communicating with partners and with students and with staff generally. The model that we've got, the partner staff tend to go through the program support team. They've got like one contact, everything they need to know, they ask that person, and then they, field it out. So we don't have a lot of direct communication with individual partners in that way, and so it's quite hard for us to send out like library news or messages or developments and be sure that they're getting them. So one of the things that we've done over the last couple of years, and this year it's went online, is to make a newsletter, which is not a new concept at all. But I was thinking, what kind of things can we put in the newsletter? And again, similar to the last slide, of using examples and using what works and trying to think what message am I trying to put across in this newsletter. And one of the key things that I wanted to do in relation to communication was, if the whole partner isn't going to communicate directly with the library, and I understand why, they don't want to have to remember lots of different people when they can just remember one, is there like one contact that we can have, preferably in the library, but different systems. So one of the things I'm asking centre leaders is, can you hook me up with the librarian or the library staff or whoever the administrator is who is responsible for the library there? And again, I'm using a bit of a smaller case study wherein I already have some really good relationships with some of our centre librarians. So using one of them, we had a meeting with the librarian from one of our Trinidad partners, and he always has a lot of questions before his new intakes, because he really wants to provide a great service and he wants to make sure he understands. So we had a good meeting with him, and I've included that. So I feel, again, like amplifying what you're doing and not being afraid to do that, because sometimes I think we don't always share what's been going well, and I think we should, and that's what I'm trying to do now. So I've actually on the presentation got links to these things so people can have a look if they want to, but I just wanted to reflect on a few things that I feel have worked over the last few months in relation to building relationships and supporting distance learners. But these concepts they would work across any kind of area. So that's it really. But those are the three things that I wanted to say. So I'm kind of finished. Thank you for listening. Hopefully that was okay. I'll stop sharing now if I can.
Brilliant. Thank you, Leanne. And thank you to all of our presenters today for fantastic presentations and for keeping incredibly to time. So I needed no interventions whatsoever. We've got time now for some questions. So if you want to put your hand up, then I can ask you to just put your questions to any of our presenters today from any of the three presentations. Alexandra?
Hi, thanks, Elder. This is a question for Dan and Karen. Thanks for your paper about the revamped network. It was really interesting, and I loved the look of it and the graphics. And it was clear that one of your kind of motivations was to be more outward looking rather than inward looking, as in terms of your group, and to attract new audiences. And I was just curious whether you've seen any impacts of that, whether you've, I mean, it might be too early to say, but do you feel like you've attracted new users? Are you seeing different people come in through your virtual doors and now physical doors as well?
Too early to say, because well, any minute now the website will go live. It's not yet live, so we're just still polishing off content for that, and we'll be meeting virtually later this month as a whole tag group to discuss how we go forward. So this project hasn't yet come to a final end. Also, we are looking forward to maybe reintroducing some, in-person events now that we've got a bit more flexibility. So some heritage events for, general public. So hopefully we can see some good feedback from them. hope that answers. Watch this space. I did put at the end of the slides the URL, so it's simply the archivegroup.org. So please do tune in later and have a look once it's live.
That's great, thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Has anyone got any other questions? I can't see any other hands up in the... No? Oh, yes, Christine?
Hi, thanks. It's a question for Leanne. Leanne, you've obviously had a lot of experience in collaboration and advocacy at a distance and using online technology. A lot of other people in universities have had to employ those sorts of skills and ways of advocacy and relationship management over the last 18 months. I just wondered if you had like any top tips about how to collaborate in a virtual environment that would be helpful to people as we move into a more sort of agile environment in a more you know, while we're still developing sort of ways of communicating and collaborating online.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. Like I have been, because I never get to see any of my students or staff anyway. They're all overseas, so I've been collaborating in any way that I can for the last 15 years. I think for me that and what everybody has been doing already is kind of trying to be flexible, but not like imposing technology on people, because I find that even though I suggest things, right, they don't always want to do them. They often just prefer the simpler things like sending an email. And so I feel like keeping it as simple as possible is the first tip. Don't go looking for like complicated technology. I mean, it's great if you find something that's really suitable, but it's not always necessary and not always super welcome. And the second thing, I think, again, based on what I've said in the presentation, I think you know, saying why the partnership or the relationship is useful. You know, so like, don't expect people to just want to work with you because, you know, you're great, and they don't know that, and they also don't know what you can do for them unless you tell them. They're not psychic. So I feel like when you approach someone to do any kind of relationship, whether it's online or anything, kind of have a think yourself, what can I give that person? What do I want from them? And then finding a way to sell that in a way, and being positive about it. I feel like though it's not, because it seems like it should be about technology when it's distance and things are online, and a little bit it is, but it's actually the same relationship management principles as on campus apply. People just want to know what they're going to get out of it in a way, why they should spend their time on something. And so that's why I've tended to move towards kind of try and amplify what we are doing. What are the good, you know, like also, I mean, not everything works, you know, I do share things that don't work as well. I was trying to be a bit more positive on this one. But things, you know, just being honest about sharing things that work or don't, and why that's beneficial for them, I think. So if that's a helpful answer or not.
Thanks, Leanne. We've got a question now from John Wright.
Hello, thank you all for your presentations, really interesting. I have a question for Karen and Dan, and I suppose it's about, you know, opening out collections further and whether there are any opportunities, any funding grants available for digitisation and making collections available that way.
Yes, there are funding grants out there. They come up every so often, and one of the ideas for us was that we really wanted to explore the idea of getting funding like that in collaboration with other projects, because it's so competitive. Obviously, when the grants do come up, you know, loads of archives and institutions are applying. So you know, there's not many people who get them. So therefore, we were really keen on the idea that we will collaborate on bids. We've already started collaborating, as we were showing, on different exhibitions and projects like that, but funding is really key, and that's something which we want to collaborate on, perhaps with the idea that if there's collections which have similar themes within different institutions, we might be able to look at digitising them as one big project. or perhaps if it's, smaller projects or something. So yeah, that's part of the idea. So those grants do come up, but they're not super regular, and they don't, as I say, they're highly competitive. So hopefully we will, but it'll be collaborative, I would have thought.
Okay, thank you, Dan. I suppose there is that kind of strength in numbers thing then that might make the bids a little stronger potentially, I guess.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, absolutely, John. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you.
I can see a question from Maureen Pinder.
Hello, just unmuting. My question was for Donna and Joe from Leeds Beckett, actually. Thanks for your presentation. That was very interesting. It's sad, isn't it, that there isn't going to be any continued funding for the project going forward. And my question was really just, is that it's not going to go forward at Leeds Beckett, or is that MIND, the whole National Mentally Healthy University project, is ending and isn't going to be continued?
So it's a case of National Mind, because we worked with Leeds Mind, who then reported into National Mind. They are looking to focus more on mental health in young people rather than sort of narrowing it down to university to students. So I think what their aim is that if they focus on young people, they will also include university students as well. Whether that will work, I don't know, but it has been a 2-year project, but we were only invited into it in the 2nd year. So I think when I did say, it's only 12 months, it was only 12 months for Leeds Beckett to try and get these things set up and running. But in actual fact, the Mind and the Goldman Sachs point of view, it's been a 2-year project.
Right, okay. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everyone. That looks like all of the questions now. So once again, thank you very much to all our presenters. That was a fab session that I'm sure everyone enjoyed. We are fast running to the final end of the conference now. So this is just a little reminder that Rosie Jones will be doing the closing remarks for the conference at 1:30 and announcing the winners of the sponsor treasure hunt at the same time. You can access those in the same way you've accessed everything through the link in the timetables channel within Teams. But for now, that's the end of this session. Feel free to go and explore Teams a little bit for the last 10 minutes or so. And then please do join Rosie for the close of the conference. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.